Blockbuster story in the New York Times, its broad outlines confirmed by Fox News, reporting that FBI officials feel Mr. Obama has, quote, already decided the answers to the very questions they are looking into, and that he prematurely cleared anyone involved of wrongdoing. The Furor led reporters to ask White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest if his boss wasn't trying to, quote, steer the FBI in a particular direction.
Of course not. The president certainly respects the independence and integrity of independent investigations, including those that are conducted by the FBI.
Some FBI officials are said to be drawing parallels with the case of former CIA Director David Petraeus, who pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor earlier this year amid charges he improperly gave classified secrets to his biographer and lover, Paula Broadwell. In 2012, President Obama said he'd seen no evidence that Petraeus' actions had had a negative impact on our national security. Early in his first term, President Obama publicly accused the police in Cambridge, Massachusetts of having, quote, acted stupidly when they arrested Harvard professor Henry Louis Gates. And then in 2012, 1 month before George Zimmerman was indicted in the shooting death of Trayvon Martin, the president remarked that if he had had a son, he would have looked like Martin. Zimmerman was ultimately acquitted in that case. At other times, President Obama has exercised the proper restraint.
From the particular circumstances of Ferguson, which I am careful not to speak to because it's not my job as president to comment on ongoing investigations and specific cases.
As for Mrs. Clinton and her email server, my Fox News colleague Catherine Herridge is reporting tonight that FBI investigators are focused on whether the former Secretary of State was, quote, grossly negligent in her handling of classified data. Megan?
James, thank you. Joining me now, James Kallstrom. He's the former FBI Assistant Director in Charge and a former Senior Counterterrorism Advisor to the New York Governor. Jim, thank you for being back on the program. So you know a lot of the agents involved in this investigation. How angry must they be tonight?
Well, I know some of the agents, Megan. I know some of the supervisors, and I know the senior staff. And they're PO'd, I mean, no question. This is like someone driving a nail, you know, another nail into the coffin of a criminal justice system and what the public thinks about it. You know, that's the real hurtful part. You know, the public sees this and, you know, people shouldn't wonder why the government in general is held in such low esteem.
They're going in there. They're seizing 4 computer servers from the State Department just last week. They're doing their job. They're trying to figure out whether national security was compromised. And yet you've got the commander-in-chief out there declaring this over for all intents and purposes in that 60 Minutes interview.
I mean, it's over the top. I mean, first off, all this will do is make them more committed. Not that they need being more committed, because they're going to do the right thing. I know these guys. I spent 28 years there myself, so I know how it works. And they're going to find the truth, or they're going to say there is no evidence here. They're going to tell the truth about what happens. And we have to be big boys, and we have to stand up and say what that truth is and deal with it, you know, the way our criminal justice system demands. I know Jim Comey very well. He's a great guy. I worked for Governor Pataki when we backgrounded him to be the U.S. Attorney in New York. He's a good friend. He's got a good backbone, and he'll do the right thing. He has a 10-year term, and he doesn't serve necessarily at the pleasure.
But the FBI doesn't get to make the final call. They have to present their findings to the Department of Justice. And might there be fear now that this is all going to be for naught because the fix is in?
Well, I'll tell you. I don't think they'd get away with that if there's a case, you know, and it sure looks to me. I mean, I have not talked to anybody in the FBI on purpose. I haven't asked them any questions. But, I mean, just the news reports, there's prima facie cases of numerous Title 18 statutes, in my view. So, you know, it's just a matter of how they'll compress all these things into either a bill or no bill. But, you know, they're only probably halfway through this investigation. And it's going places. You know, the State Department, most of the communications of the State Department are classified. You know, if some of them are confidential, most of them are probably confidential, but it's all things dealing with how this country deals with foreign governments. You know, that's not something that we want to blow to the wind.
Jim,
so, I mean,
how serious?
What she says is just crazy.
How serious do you think the transgression was by President Obama? You know, he says he doesn't comment on ongoing cases, and yet something as extraordinary as a possible former Secretary of State getting indicted, he chooses to weigh in on.
No, I think it's a big transgression. I mean, I would have, you know, am I surprised? I guess I'm not surprised, but I'm disappointed.
Wow. We'll continue to follow
But
this.
I'll tell you, I don't think it'll impact Megan. You know, they're not going to do that. I mean, I was when we were investigating Tito Flight 800, and I had 2 or 3 meetings with Bill Clinton in the White House. You know, next thing I know, people are on the internet saying that, you know, Clinton's told me to find a certain thing. I mean, that was just total nonsense. I mean, that would never happen. I can't imagine that ever happening in the FBI.
These guys are straight shooters.